Thank you very much. Let's take our seats. Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this very important occasion. To friends who have come from different parts of our continent, it is my position that you cannot have a successful Kenya without a thriving Africa. We live in a context where our destinies are intertwined. And that is why it is an honor for me to welcome you all to Nairobi for the 9th annual meeting of the African Economic Zones Organization, a prestigious event bringing together over 400 local and international business leaders, government representatives, and other stakeholders united to advance to a shared commitment to advance economic growth and promote transformative collaboration across our continent. I thank the organizers and partners for their commendable efforts in ensuring the success of this very pivotal event. I also wish to express my deep appreciation to the Africa Union, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, whose leader is here, and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development for their steadfast support for this event, and more particularly for their critical role in championing the African industrialization agenda that is encapsulated in the Agenda 2063 of our continent. Your dedication to sustainable industrial growth across the continent is exemplary and deeply valued. This conference provides an invaluable platform to exchange ideas, forge partnerships, and amplify the transformative role of special economic zones in building resilience and a prosperous African economies. Today, we convene under a theme that examines how African special economic zones can drive resilience, inclusivity, and sustainability in our economies, aligning with our shared vision of leveraging our continent's immense potential that we all understand. In the space of, we have 2/3 of the world's arable and cultivated land. We have almost 60% of the world's renewable energy resources, including those in Kenya. And we have an educated, thriving human capital. These are assets that this continent has, and we need to work together to unlock the potential that exists in these assets. This focus has become especially crucial with the advent of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which unites 55 member states and provides access to a market of 1.4 billion people. Africa is a continent richly endowed with an unparalleled abundance of natural resources, as I have said, and human capital. Yet, our economic performance does not reflect the scale of this potential. It is imperative that we transition swiftly from dependence on raw material production to competitive export production and value addition through industrialization. And special economic zones are at the intersection between the opportunities that exist in our continent. It is also critical that we apply our best efforts to intensify intra-Africa trade. Now it is around 15%. Other economies, whether in Asia or in Europe or in Americas, are in the 30s, 40s, going to 60%. In enhancing our intra-Africa trade, we shall begin to cover much ground in our journey to achieving the aspirations of Agenda 2063 and realizing the Africa that we all want. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area represents a historic opportunity to create a tariff-free Africa, boost intra-Africa trade and investment, and also drive industrialization as we generate meaningful employment for our young people. By reducing reliance on external support, particularly debt, we can build a self-reliant Pan-African economic area rooted in integration, innovation, and enhanced intra-African collaboration. All these ambitions require a strategically designed ecosystem that align critical regulatory, institutional, and infrastructural elements essential for driving industrial development, export competitiveness, and trading capabilities. That is why special economic zones are indispensable engines of this growth. And I want to commend the leadership of AEZO and all the partners that have come together to put together this very important event where we can reflect, where we can think, share ideas, share experiences, and see to it that we unlock the huge potential that exists in this continent. They are intentionally packaged to attract impactful investment, create jobs, and foster economic development. The adoption of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Ministerial Regulations in 2023 further expands the potential of special economic zones by facilitating goods produced within these zones to access the vast African market without barriers. There can never be a greater opportunity than what we have in our special economic zone. It is the reason why, as a country, we now have 6 new special economic zones to provide additional infrastructural capacity for more companies, more partners, more investors to work with us as we unlock the huge youth potential that we have in Kenya and opportunities that exist for manufacturing, for value addition, for agro-processing, for industrialization, again, leveraging on our renewable energy assets that are in plenty to be able to drive green production. To capitalize on these opportunities, the government of Kenya has introduced also reforms to enhance the operational environment for special economic zones. Under the Finance Act 2023 last year, key aspects of special economic zone operations were reformed, making them more viable for integrated investment in our special economic zones parks. This approach fosters synergy, boosts efficiency, and creates thriving ecosystems critical for Africa's industrialization takeoff. Additionally, the Finance Act of 2023 in Kenya introduced preferential market access for goods manufactured in special economic zones using local materials in Kenya. Again, because we want to make sure that as we industrialize Africa, we are using locally available materials. The law in Kenya has also introduced incentives such as reducing withholding taxes on non-resident investors, alongside other measures aimed at attracting foreign direct investment, strengthening our economic competitiveness, and driving industrial growth. We are also undertaking comprehensive amendments to the Special Economic Zones Act of 2015 to align it with regional and continental frameworks, including the Continental Free Trade Area. These changes will make Kenya's special economic zones more attractive, competitive, and globally integrated, thereby unlocking fast economic opportunities in these areas. At the regional level, the East African community has adopted a unified special economic zones policy to harmonize the treatment of goods produced within these zones. And among the assignments I will be having tomorrow, when we have our EAC summit, is to look at the business environment. Tomorrow in Arusha, the heads of state from the East African community will be meeting. And among the targets we will be looking at is how to improve the business environment, how to integrate our economies more. And the item of special economic zone that was agreed on by our ministers, is going to be approved at the summit. Accordingly, the recently approved EAC Special Economic Zones Regulation of 2024 will ensure the free movement of goods across member states, bolstering regional integration and positioning economic zones as catalysts for industrialization and growth. You couldn't have had this meeting at a better time. Today, we are having this meeting here, sharing ideas. Tomorrow, we will be expanding the horizon of special economic zones to sell goods within the East African region. So for those of you who have been looking for a destination to invest, you have a framework, a fiscal framework, you have a policy framework that facilitates the big market that exists in the East African community and the big market that exists in our continent. You will have access to green energy. You have the best human capital anywhere in the world, very well trained, very well educated, speak good English, you know. So if you are looking for a place, a destination to set up shop, look no further. I think you're just in the right place. And let me add this. We now have integrated domestic and regional institutional frameworks which are firmly aligned with our industrial growth strategies. One dimension remains and calls for focused action by delegates at this conference: strengthening business organizations such as the Africa Economic Zones Organization is essential to foster collaboration among governments, investors, and the private sector. This organization is essential in unifying African businesses, driving policy advocacy, and developing industrial strategies that leverage the transformational potential of economic zones. Nobody has the monopoly of knowledge. We need the input in terms of advocacy by your organization. We need you to work with us as we fashion policies that would make it cost-effective, make it efficient for you to set up camp, not just in Kenya, but in our region. In Kenya, the enactment of Special Economic Zones Law in 2015 laid the groundwork for significant progress in sectors such as manufacturing, technology, and agriculture. Our zones are attracting investments, creating jobs, and facilitating the transfer of skills and technology, all of which are critical to building a competitive and inclusive economy. However, we must not neglect the imperative to address emerging challenges, including global economic fluctuations and the subject of climate change. It is crucial to embed sustainability in the development and operations of our economic zones by adopting climate-conscious practices, leveraging green technologies, and fostering industrial alignment with Africa's environmental priorities. Here in Kenya, we are actively integrating these principles into our special economic zones policies to ensure sustainability and also to ensure inclusivity and inclusive growth in the wider context. I encourage all of you to embrace the bright future of African economic cooperation that is unfolding before us. By integrating special economic zones into continental transformation strategy, we shall enhance resilience and competitiveness to achieve inclusive prosperity in our continent. Collaboration, knowledge sharing, and investment partnerships will position Africa as a premier global destination for the most significant investments. I want to encourage those who come from this continent. Our position is the following: that investors must not necessarily be white or foreign. You find many African business people investing their hard-earned dollars or whatever money in whatever currency in other continents because they do not have as much faith in our continent. I think it is time that Africans, first and foremost, believe in themselves, invest in their countries before we ask others to invest in our countries and in our continent. We must lead the way. We must lead the way in believing in ourselves, believing in our continent, believing in our countries, being patriotic. And if there are challenges in our continent, if there are challenges of inefficiency, if there are challenges of corruption, we must deal with them. It is our responsibility to eliminate these challenges so that we can build an environment that, starting with ourselves, we can invest. Kenya remains committed to advancing collaborative framework with all African nations. We therefore invite our brothers and sisters across the continent to explore opportunities for joint initiatives that elevate our economic zones and drive our collective transformation. Just a simple act of making it easier for people to move, for people to trade, for ideas to cross borders. And it is the reason why, as Kenya, we have said that every African is free to come to Kenya, and there is no requirement of any visa. They can come to Kenya because they will come and pay their way around. We are not saying that there will be anything free in Kenya. If you come, you have to pay for your hotel, you have to pay for your movement around, and so we have no problem. All we want is that we want to have an Africa that is integrated, where there is freedom of movement, freedom of capital, freedom of goods and services. And that's why I am grateful to the African Economic Zones Organization, industry leaders, development partners, and private sector for their demonstrated devotion to Africa's economic advancement. I see it in what you're doing. I feel it in the programs that you're running. And I urge all of us to remain determined and motivated to proceed on this historic journey of Pan-African economic transformation so that we may live and work in an Africa that thrives on self-sufficiency, inclusivity, and sustainability. May this meeting serve as a catalyst for Africa's economic renaissance and inspire us to achieve our full potential together. Ladies and gentlemen, I now declare the 9th annual meeting of the Africa Economic Zones Organizations open. May our deliberations here pave the way for a more prosperous, competitive, and sustainable Africa. Congratulations, thank you very much, and God bless you.
Appreciate His Excellency the President. I will request Your Excellency, sir, to remain on stage and allow me to have a set of only 3 photos, sir. The rest of us kindly be seated. I invite the CES Investment, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the IASO President, the IASO Secretary General, the AU Representative, AFCFTA, UNIDO, and EU to join His Excellency. Let us take the first photo. Thank you, sir. The second photo, I'll request the team to take their seats, apart from the cabinet secretaries. Apart from the cabinet secretaries, the rest of us can take their seats. I'll invite the chair.